Jack. Good morning to Jack Whitehall, the comedian, who in the Sunday Times magazine yesterday, in the Day in My Life feature, said...
he always wakes up to Good Morning Britain because he likes to see you interrupting people.
I wake up at about 7 a.m. at the moment, much earlier than I used to. I get a cup of coffee. I don't know why, but I gravitate towards putting on Good Morning Britain and start the day with Piers Morgan interrupting somebody.
Normally me.
He's expanded on this on Twitter this morning, saying, even though the quote they used, which is, I have a very distinct running style, it's been described as a wounded deer. It's quite embarrassing. The worst revelation in this interview is that I watch Piers Morgan every morning. Journalist has really caught me with my guard down. Well, good morning, Jack. Don't worry about it, mate. The first stage is just admitting you've got a problem. And your problem is watching me every morning being annoying. And I get it. I get it.
At least you don't have to work with him.
That's why we're breaking all ratings records for GMB at the moment, because people like you can't stop yourselves. Another regular viewer is the former British Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, who joins us now. Good morning to you, Gordon.
Good morning. I hope you're not going to interrupt me and bring Jack Whitehall's fears to life.
Gordon, I put you on an entirely different pedestal to Jack Whitehall. There will be no interruptions. It's great to have you as a former British Prime Minister.
By the way.
We're at a crucial moment, aren't we, with this American election? Donald Trump refusing to go. The race being called now by all major media outlets for Joe Biden, including Fox News, the Trump-supporting network, historically. What do you make of that? Should Trump go now? Have you seen enough to warrant him conceding?
Yes, I think so. It's pretty clear that President Biden is President Biden now, and it's pretty clear also that Donald Trump should accept his defeat. Now, he can take any legal action he wants, but I think he's got to recognise he's lost on the way the votes have been counted so far, and he's unlikely to win anything in the courts. I think we want to get back to normal. I think the American people were voting to get back to normal, and it's very difficult for America to criticise countries for being dysfunctional when we see all the things that have happened in America in the last few weeks.
What is fascinating, though, Gordon, isn't it, is that you say people want to get back to normal, and there's something exhausting about Trump, and has been for, 4 years. It's exhausting, the kind of constant noise around it all. However, when it actually came to voting, 70 million Americans voted for Trump, 7 million more than last time, about 4 million more than voted for Hillary Clinton. Now, Joe Biden got 74 million, and that broke all records for any candidate ever, and that must be acknowledged. But this was hardly a repudiation of Trumpism, was it? Especially as the Republicans look like they're going to keep the Senate. It looks like that rather than losing seats in the House, they gained them. In many ways, with the exception of Donald Trump probably being removed by Secret Service from his White House bedroom, in many ways, it's been a validation of Trump's 4 years.
Yeah, I think there's this cartoon saying trespassers will be removed, and that's applying to Donald Trump if he doesn't leave. But look, I think every political party in the West has this problem, that there are people who feel they've lost out, they've been left out, they're forgotten. They're invisible people to people in government. They're treated as second-class citizens. And Donald Trump, to be fair to him, has managed to get the support of large numbers of people who feel something has got to change. I think Joe Biden managed to win the suburbs. He managed to win the ethnic minorities. He managed to show people that he would be a unifying force in the country. And I think if you win by what is now almost 5 million votes, I think the president has got to leave.
But Gordon Brown, how does Joe Biden unify a country where 70 million voters who wanted their man to stay in the Oval Office for a second term have been told that the election has been stolen from them in an act of fraud? I mean, that's a lot of people who have now been stirred up to think that something dodgy went on here. Whether you think that there is something dodgy or not, that's a lot of people who are going to feel disenfranchised, even if legally that's not upheld.
Well, I know Joe Biden. What you see is what you get. He's open, he's friendly. If Ronald Reagan was the great communicator, he is the great conciliator. He will spend time, hours, days, weeks, bringing people together, bringing Republicans and Democrats together, bringing the international community together as well, because we've lost this spirit and the habit of international cooperation. And, Joe Biden, as Piers wrote very movingly after the death of Joe Biden's son, he's naturally empathetic, but experience has made him feel the pain of others. He understands people in a way that I think some politicians have been criticised for not doing. And, of course, he's been through terrible experiences in his own life that has made him really sympathetic to other people. And I think he will spend a huge amount of time bringing America together, and I think he will spend a huge amount of time also, perhaps later, on the international stage bringing people together. If you want a president who's going to unify the country, you've got Joe Biden, who's probably the best person at this moment to do exactly that.
Gordon, you talk about people being left behind, feeling forgotten. There's a massive problem in this country right now, and we're getting our email and our Twitter's blowing up with this. The excluded. The 2 to 3 million people who just fell through the cracks in the first lockdown, many of whom have not been rescued this time either. These are these self-employed millions who just didn't qualify for the government's support. And heartbreaking stories coming in of people in all different forms of life and careers. What should the government be doing but it's not doing?
Well, I feel for people who have had no support, yet they've got no economic business to be able to do at the moment. And I think there's 500,000 less people who are self-employed now than there was less than a year ago, and that's a terrible tragedy. But, you know, when you look at Black Lives Matter, when you look at what Marcus Rashford has done, when you look at all the campaigns in the country to help people in the regions so that they're not forgotten, I think people are speaking out. I think people want to see change, and I think the government will have to listen. I've always said that Rishi Sunak's budget is inadequate. He's got to do better, and he's got to do better in the next few weeks. You can't take away £20 extra on universal credit that was given in March and take it away only a few weeks from now. Take $6 billion out of the economy, destroy spending power for people, make people more impoverished than they are at the moment. You've got to try, and this is the responsibility of a Prime Minister, you've got to try to unite the country, bring people together and show that there is a basic fairness in the way we're going to treat people in future.
You mentioned Marcus Rashford. We haven't touched on that today, but a remarkable achievement that a 22-year-old footballer, and particularly given how maligned footballers were by our health secretary earlier in this crisis, saying they didn't do their bit. But he's now got millions and millions more out of the government and he had a personal conversation with Boris Johnson. What do you make of that, Gordon? I mean, it's an extraordinary achievement by this young man.
It is, and he's got a lot more to do because he's not finished yet. Look, Marcus spoke from the heart. He spoke from his personal experience. He did go to school hungry. Unless there were the breakfast clubs that eventually came to help him, he did get free school meals. His mother, I think, did get tax credits. And so she was able to give Marcus Rashford the start that was necessary. Otherwise, he himself would have been set back, his nutrition set back, he probably wouldn't have been the footballer he was. So Marcus is actually speaking for thousands of people around the country, you know, millions of people who are in poverty at the moment. You know, there are 4 million children in this country who are going to school hungry, big or ill-clad, or in poverty. And that's a figure that is a disgrace for a modern society like others, and especially when we're telling people we're in this together, we've got to face the same virus, the same recession. You've got to help those people who are in the greatest difficulty, and I think the government has a duty to do that in what will be a budget at the end of November from the Chancellor.
Gordon Brown, we are in the last sort of ditch, last gasp of negotiations with the EU over a possible Brexit deal. What do you think Joe Biden will do in terms of a UK-US trade deal? He has been pretty negative about Brexit, spoke out against the 2016 referendum result and warned about protecting the Good Friday Agreement. Is he going to be... I mean, we saw Boris Johnson, perhaps as a natural ally of President Trump. With his repudiation of Trumpism, will Joe Biden see a value in the special relationship which will work in terms of a trade deal?
Yeah, I worked with Joe Biden. He is a friend of Britain, always been a friend of Britain, wants to be a friend of Britain. I believe that if the virus is over, he'll visit Britain in the first 6 months of his presidency, and I think he'll be here again at the end of the year, if it's possible, for the climate change conference in Glasgow. I think he's telling Britain that he can't sign a trade deal if there's any danger of a hard border between North and South Ireland. And I think he's already speeding up the negotiations. I believe that the government will have to change tack. They will have to withdraw these clauses in the internal market bill, or at least not implement them. I think we'll see this spoken about in the House of Lords today, and Joe Biden will be a name that is mentioned. And I think it is possible now that a European-British deal is even more likely because of Joe Biden.
Do you think that the government should offer, or the Queen, I don't know in whose power it is, a state visit to Joe Biden in order to cement that relationship off the back, perhaps, of the G7 or the climate change conferences?
Yeah, I think that's a real possibility. President Trump got the benefits of a visit. I think Joe Biden will welcome that. As I say, he's a friend of Britain. I think he'll want to come to the G7 when it's in Britain, probably in the spring of this year, and certainly he'll want to come to the climate change conference. So I don't think if the virus allows him, Joe Biden will miss out on the opportunity to come to Britain. Now, he would prefer us to be closer to Europe. He is obviously, from his Irish background and roots, very sympathetic to what's happening in Ireland and wants to see this soft border or this border not existing between the North and the South. But I think Joe Biden has been a conciliator all his life. He will agree with us on the things where he can agree and get progress, and he'll agree to disagree on the other issues. Joe Biden will make a huge difference to the strength of UK-US relations and also relations between us and the rest of the world, because I see international cooperation on the virus, I see international cooperation now happening on an economic recovery, and I see it happening on climate change as well as on NATO and security. I think we're in for a more cooperative world.